SDAQ&A, a former Adventist looking in from the outside.
If you don't mind, share a little bit about your dad's story and journey and his claims, and then we will jump back to those two things that are influential on you leaving the Adventist church. So I'm enthralled.
Perfect.
Tell us about your dad. What were his claims?
All right. Well, Dad was born in 25, Catholic family up in New Brunswick, Canada. They were a real close-knit family. His dad was a big-time storyteller. Folks would come from miles around to listen to him tell stories every week. And that is very influential on my father because he, too, was a storyteller. That guy could tell some, riveting stories. So, as the story goes, his mother died when he was, I believe it was 12. And he had enough of religion or whatever, and he parted his ways. And he ended up getting caught up in the war, and he was in the merchant navy, and miraculously, just before one of the boats went out, they pulled him off the boat. Well, we all know what happened to many of those ships with the Germans. It was sunk, but his life was spared. And then he got out of the Navy, and he was up in Montreal in a bowling alley parlor room, and he ran into an old buddy, and they get talking, and the old buddy's into the seances and stuff. And he's trying to coach my dad. Come on, let's do it together. How would you like to hear your mother's voice? And Dad was like, well, I don't know about that, but anyways, they ended up going, and he was there, and apparently there was all this supernatural mumbo jumbo going on about them wanting Dad to be affiliated with this secret society, and this performer of a rock group that was famous reached out to Dad and this guy at the seance and took him off to some, restaurant. They sat down and talked about it. And he's like, no, we just worship the devil, man. This all this other stuff's just nonsense. And I guess the devil, he's got some big plans for you. And his dad has it right then and there. He's roped in because there's no way out. And the gentleman said, well, I'll pick you up in a week. Let's meet somewhere, and I'll take you there. And sure enough, the guy shows up in a week, and they go off, and they have this meeting in this like high-end satanic, stomping grounds. I don't know what you would call it. It's, mansion or whatever. Supposedly there was all these altars in the basement with pictures of devils and stuff that had made themselves visible, and somebody had taken a picture, and then they did the drawings of them and all this stuff. So anyways, he was in. I guess he started having dreams of who was going to win the races and horses, and he was betting on that, and he was making a boatload of money, and then the bookies didn't like it, and they told him not to come around anymore and stuff like that. It's just, hey, that very well could have all happened. And I'm not saying it isn't happening. I'm not making fun of my dad. I want everybody to understand that. Yeah. But, the story is like, wow, right? There's everything in the story. There's nothing that is not in this story. It's an amazing, it's a dream for Adventists, because the gentleman that helps him get out was having serious troubles with union workers, so much so that he bought himself a gun. What are you going to do? And it's just, wow, right? There's just every detail that would, solidify the beliefs of Adventism is in this story. I definitely believe Dad was somehow tangled up in the occult. And the reason being is that I never had ever an issue with them until this one time when I had to go to their house. I wasn't living there anymore. I must have been 20-ish, maybe. I wasn't married. And I don't know what the deal was, but there was a lot of people there, and I had to sleep with Dad. So that was no big deal, right? And in the middle of the night, I have this dream where this dog is attacking me. Okay. And I mean, this dog, I can remember to this day, was going to take me out. And I grabbed that dog by the neck and I was twisting this dog's neck, man, for all it was worth. And I'm hearing this oyoy, oyoy, oyoy. And I wake up and my dad's sitting up with his hands on my arm and I'm just twisting the living daylights out of his neck, man.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I didn't think anything of it. And then the next morning, Dad said, man, I'm never sleeping with anybody ever again. And then a week later or whatever, his neck was all black and blue. I felt terrible about it.
Wow.
But it's like later on, now that the years have gone by, it's like there was something going on with this guy. This was not a normal. That was not a regular. That wasn't right. Something was off. And I would have to say, I mean, if people are looking for like horror stories or, you know, demonic stuff, for one, I don't talk about that. I don't talk about their nonsense. They feed off it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't like talking about the devil. I mean, he's there. I mean, we can talk about the fact that, you know, he's at odds with our Savior and our hope. You know, we know the story. We realize anybody's spent any time in Scripture, but just like Scripture doesn't dwell on it. You know, we're victorious, and they're not, and they hate us because we have victory because of the faith that we have in a Savior. You know what I'm saying? So no, I'm not. I'm not into it. Dad, I don't know. He was writing a lot of stuff, and where the truth begins and the end, the truth ends and the fictional aspects of it begin is anybody's guess.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, and I mean, I've lost a lot of sleep over this. I mean, and especially after I came out, because it's like, it's not like I could just say, see you later. You know, I mean, I've had enough of Adventism. I'm like, oh no, my dad's a gatekeeper. My dad's a gatekeeper, because this isn't, it's not truth. There's so much air in it, you know? Anyways,
when you look at the perhaps the biggest influence your dad had on Adventism was that, and this is where, like you say, where does the actuality blur with myth, and where do the stories come in, and the and it sounds like your dad was a great father. You had a great upbringing. He had this experience when he was younger. He became an Adventist. He got out of that world of the occult. But when he would have been invited to speak and the story started to become more public, I want to know a little bit about how you felt then. Did you go along to some of the sermons? But my point is that his biggest impact on Adventism was he claimed that he saw people or demons that said that the Seventh Adventist Church is the right church. Adventists loved that because
isn't that a
security blanket? We are the remnant. So share with us that concept. And did you go along and hear some of these talks? And were you like, this is my dad telling stories. Where does the line blur?
Oh, no, not at the time. No.
And a lot of people say, you know, oh, well, people are human. We've all got flaws. That's true. None of it's a great support that people wheel out for Ellen White. She was a good person and had flaws and faults. We're not talking about normal human flaws and faults. We're talking about claims that are made about supernatural influence and guidance. Are they accurate or not? Did they come from God or not? So in this case, share with us a little bit of young Daniel going along maybe to some of these talks. Were you at the Doug Batchelor meeting? and tell us a little bit about this concept of how your dad said, demons told me that the Seventh Adventist Church is the thing they're worried about the most.
Well, it wasn't actually demons that told him; it was the high priest that was telling. It was telling everybody. Okay, so, well, the story has it. Now we all have to remember, the dad was only in this for maybe 6 months. I mean, top. So it's not like he spent years and years in this. And these people were gonna initiate him into their sect on October 31st, which isn't that Halloween? Is that Halloween? That's Halloween, right? So October 31st. And it was just before that he, came into meeting. He came to meeting Cyril Gross and was given the 21 Bible studies in 7 days and what happened. But I know what your question. I go back to that, but my personal own opinion, and I'll get it right out right now. From what I understand now, this group, these people don't just go and find people on the street, bring them in, and make them somebody and enrich their lives. Okay, that's not. These people fight amongst themselves for room in this place. It's bad deal. Okay, it's not like religion, okay, where you're going to apostolize someone. I personally believe that they brought these two in and they gained their trust because they were going to take them up and they were going to be human sacrifices. I really, truly believe that Dad was going to be a human sacrifice. I don't believe that they were going to initiate him in. And I asked Dad about that. I said, well, what were they going to initiate you with? And he's like, well, an animal. It's like Moloch won't take a chicken, Dad. Okay? Moloch's not going to take a chicken. They still do human sacrifices. You know what I'm saying? How ridiculous is that to say that they're doing animal sacrifices? Nothing's changed. We're dealing with wickedness here. So, in retrospect, it's just my personal opinion. The dad was being totally had. And he went into this place and they were giving him all kinds of stuff to gain his trust. And they would have brought him up there and ate him. I hate to put it that way. And most probably his friend was eaten. Okay. But who's to say? That's my own personal opinion. And people, scoff, but it's not a good bunch. And they don't go looking for people on the street to be one of them. No, it's family, it's bloodline. It goes back a long, long way. These people are bad. So that's my own personal opinion, but I'll get back to once I found out. I did go with Dad to when he had some, it was not a seminar, but he would preach in people's churches, especially in the afternoons. And I was like, wow, I was gung ho, right? Mm. Who's going to think at 14 years old that there's something wrong with this?
Yeah.
Right? And the story's so legit because it is legit.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the part of the great controversy scene and some satanic priest is saying all these things, it makes no sense. It's like, well, one guy raises his hand. It's like, well, what about the Adventists? He goes, oh, the satanic priest says, oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about the Adventists. Sorry. They can't be deceived because they keep the Sabbath. Well, what about the Seventh-day Baptists? And what about a bunch of other people? Can't they be deceived either? I mean, if the issue is keeping the Sabbath, Adventism isn't the only gig in town. Excuse me.
Yeah. I'll bring across a question from Sherry, who I've interviewed, and she was actually at the Doug Batchelor meeting where your dad was presenting that day. And she says, your dad knew the dark spirits were real, because she was very impacted by that day. That day almost solidified her connection with the Adventist Church, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong, Sherry. So he needed the Father so much and trusted the true Father of us all. What are your thoughts when you hear comments like that people have been so influenced by your dad, and particularly that he himself connected with spirits? I heard a story once where he said he was in a room, and a picture literally went from one side of the room to the other, and kind of hooked itself on the wall without any hooks and stuff.
Yeah,
and so if you've had let's say that I've got a theory that all Adventist apologists are either duped, deluded, or dishonest. And you're kind of, I think what we're saying is your dad wasn't dishonest, but he may have been duped. And then maybe some stories kind of came in that were connected with kind of delusion. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I was watching one of his videos here. I don't do it often, but maybe once every 3 or 4 years, I'll come across it, because what happened is we'll spit it out at me on YouTube, and I'm saying, oh, right. So I'll just click it. And he was talking and telling what the priest is saying, and it's the Great Controversy theme. And I'm looking and I'm like, that's memorized. Because he had the same mannerisms as when he would say stuff memorized. This guy had a mind. Wow. He could memorize, and not only memorize, but retain it for years. I mean, he would just like, wow. But I could see that he was calling it back from memory. And I'm saying, why would he have the words of a satanic priest memorized?
Yeah.
All right. You know what I'm saying? And I ran it back. I'm like, yeah, he is. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen my dad enough times say stuff that he's memorizing that there it is. So it's like he added the Great Controversy theme.
Yeah.
To assure people. My dad was so sure that Adventism was right. We only got a few choices here. Well, to be honest with you, when I first came out, I contemplated whether he was controlled. I'm like, oh man, is my dad a Freemason, or is he a Jesuit? Because these people, they're united to this pack, this brotherhood. And other people won't even know it. Their family, their wives, their stuff, they carry it their whole lives. It's in secrecy. So I'm like, man, maybe dad, what? You know what I'm saying? It's a possibility. And I mean, I can't totally rule it out even to this day. But there were things about him that he did that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, if that's the case, why would you pray over a kid when it's only you and him in the room when he's 4 years old? You know what I'm saying? It might have been the same prayer over and over again, but he did it. You know what I'm saying? Because he has nothing to prove to anybody. You know what I'm saying? It's stuff like that. I go in and he's kneeling by his bed praying. You know what I'm saying? But then at the same time, it's like, well, anybody that's praying, what are you lying for? I mean, a lie is a lie, whether it's for the good or bad. The God of heaven doesn't need a lie to prove no. You know what I'm saying? I don't know the mindset. You know? I wish my brother was alive. He just passed away in February of this year.
Oh, wow.
The 20th, right? He was 15 years older than me. I wish he was here because you would like to interview him. Okay. And I came out of Adventism and I said, Don, we got a problem. White's a fraud. You got to look into it. And he's like, oh, no. Well, like 6 years later, he calls me up. He goes, you're right. I go, you're out. He goes, I'm out.
Wow.
And yeah, so us two made it. But we have a sister that's like, no way. I mean, she worships the ground that my dad's on, walked on. And you know, my heart hurts for her because she's one of those people that I'm a commandment keeper, which when you get out, then rubs you the wrong way. It's like, that's arrogance. I mean, it's like, my Lord was the commandment keeper, and he attributes it to me so that I can be saved. You know, that's the good news. The good news is that I'm a commandment keeper. That's ridiculous, right? You feel for him, man. It's like, what are you doing? Get out. Be free. When I first got out, it was like the next day. I was downtown, and I'm watching these people walk on the streets, and I'm like, I'm one of them. I'm not special anymore. I'm just a regular sap, man. I don't have any specialty. I love it. This is great. You know what I'm saying?
I had a very
so
similar
free.
feeling.
Did you? Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, it was so great. I was like, I was so free, folks, that I changed my email to Danny to be free.
Yeah.
And it's just, because I wanted to be reminded of the event, the freedom that comes with knowing the truth. I found the truth, and the truth set me free. And that's our God says, I am the truth. See, because he knows when we find it, we'll always be set free. We're free from the lie that binds us. We're free from telling the lie. That's what sin is. Sin is embracing a lie and then turning around and telling it to somebody else and then get them to embrace it. That's why we're all liars. It's like, what do I embrace? It's a lie, so I don't tell somebody else it, and then they go tell somebody else it. We're all embracing lies. It's like, no. And so with that, each truth that comes along, more freedom, right? That's how it's been with my experience. And my first big one is I had 2 events take place, but you wanted me to talk a little bit more about Dad. Yeah, I went around, never suspected a thing, helped him with this book, and it helped him in ways where he'd read it and say, I don't like it, or yeah, that sounds good. You know, that kind of the trip into the supernatural. I might have even come up with a name for that. I don't know. I know with the other one, I said, beware of angels. And he took that. I don't know if he'd already thought of it, you know.
It must have sold a squillion as well, because every Adventist, I reckon 80% of Adventists would have bought a copy in the heyday.
Oh yeah. Right. Oh
so
yeah.
Who gets the royalties for that now? Is that's passed on to the family?
All I can say is, thank the God of heaven that I'm not involved, because I don't want nothing of that. No way. I'm good. No, thank you. Thank you very much. You're
involved almost a bit like an editor. He'd springboard ideas off you.
See, that Charmed by Darkness deal, Dad told me when I was helping him and stuff, he goes, I'm going to give you the manuscript to this, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. Well, he ended up changing his mind, gave it to my sister. And then she, of course, I don't know, somebody reached out to her or whatever, and that Charmed by Darkness nonsense exists today. I was wishing it would have been mine, because it would have ended there. It would have met the flames. But it didn't. But hey, you know, what can you say? That's where we live, man. We live in a land that's full of lies. And our journey is to see the truth and get rid of the lies in our lives. What do we hold on to? That's a lie. Seriously, what do we hold on to that's a lie? Because we do. We really, truly do. I know I've held on to a lot of lies, and the Lord's opened my eyes to a lot of things besides Adventism. I won't get into them here, but every time it's a joy. It's the most wonderful thing. And then seeing somebody else break free from the lie and the look on their face, it's the most addictive thing there is. There's nothing more addictive than seeing freedom from truth go across somebody's face. It's just great.
I'm watching some of the comments, and I don't encourage you to, because it's very diversional. It's very diversional. I'll bring some up onto the screen.
No, I'm not watching.
I'm noticing a lot of people defending your dad and justifying and sanctifying and rationalizing. But you mentioned you joined this other group not that long ago to help kind of maybe people that had been influenced by your dad, and that was one of the reasons they remained Adventist or became Adventist, that you can sort of say, hey, maybe that doesn't have to be a sticking point for you. You feel liberated, finding a true connection, removing yourself from the lies. So what kind of things would you say to those people that are defending your dad right now? And what sort of things, when did you start becoming aware of the lies, and what were these lies? Tell us a little bit of it, because I don't imagine it was like a one day over breakfast you think, oh, hang on, this is a lie, boom, I'm gone. There's often a 25-year period of a slow.
Oh yeah, well that's just it. And I really hope I can get these two in, because if I can get these two in, I mean that's when the whole thing just fell apart.
Let's go there.
But the folks that are going to defend my dad, they belong to that system. And there's nothing I can say that will ever change him. And I don't want that. What I finally spoke out for people that have already found their way out. And I want to assure them that they're on the right path. The folks that are inside, I really don't know how to deal with them. I hate to say that. When I first came out, I wrote to like 20 people in the church. I wrote a nice letter. I gave them reasons that we have a problem with Adventism. Not one of them replied. And like 4 months later, I got a text from one of them, I think. It's like, what? That never happened to me. Nobody ever came up to me and said, Dan, we got a problem. Ellen White's a fraud. She's been robbing everybody. And it's like, oh, well, it was okay to rob people of their work back then. Everybody did it. Well, maybe so. But anybody that has had Christ come into their lives realizes the last thing they want is other people's stuff. Use your own stuff. You don't need them, whether it's their vehicles, their house, their wife, or their words. So how do you defend somebody that's taking words from somebody else and attributing them to God and getting royalties because she's putting it in a book? That's provable. You know, how do you justify that? But I'm on a tangent and I'm going off in left field here.
No.
But now here I lost my train of thought. Folks.
Well,
where was I?
We're talking about the things that kind of your two big things you wanted to jump into.
Oh yeah, you want me? You
can go to that, but I don't mind the tangents. People watching know that it's a conversation, not an interview. So just
people, please bear with me.
We're here having our nice hot drink, and I'm using my SDAQ&A mug.
My bedtime was 2 hours ago, and so I'm like, please.
I like that even better. In some ways, people could say that there's a parallel between your dad and Ellen G. White, in the sense that he was selling books, he was telling stories, he was claiming a direct connection with God in many ways. Like, with prayer, he talks a lot about how he had prayers answered. Right. Like, for example, that one about the toner in his printing machine. I mean, there's some pretty big claims. Someone has written here on Facebook. I can't see who it is. It's just coming up as Facebook user. But they've said, and what if he was telling the truth? And this is the thing that captures people. They don't need too much empirical data or demonstrable evidence that's convincing or conclusive. They hear an anecdotal story. Someone says it. They seem to be telling the truth. And so they just believe it. Right, and their whole life is then changed on a belief with no evidence.
Our Lord told us over and over again, don't be deceived by men, because they will deceive you. He said it over and over and over again. It's to the point where, no, I cannot trust anybody, man. I can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't.
So in some ways,
that's not how we base it. He's a gatekeeper, people. He assures people that are in this system that the system's a sure thing. And he uses a satanic priest to assure you of that. So either dad was totally deceived. Okay, let's say this is totally true. Then they're going to let them go back so that they keep people in the place. I thought, well, maybe that's what happened. But really, truly, do you think some satanic priest was on every key point of the great controversy story, was telling dad this in a short period of 3 months, 6 months. I mean, seriously? No, it's but if you don't see the problems with the system, you're going to stay there. That's why I didn't try fighting with anybody. That's why I haven't said anything to anybody.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
it's
just
too much. It's just too much energy. And I mean, it is. It's a lot of energy. And at the end of the day, you're just called names and ridiculed. And it's like my brother tried to say a few things and people just said, you're embarrassing your father. Shame on you. Your father, you're disgracing him, and it's like, so just let them be. If they can't find their way out, let them be. It sucks to be that way, but remember how the Lord was that way. He was that way. He wants us to look at things. He wants us to question the spirits. He wants us to question. He wants to be, like you said, very suspicious until there's nothing to be suspicious about. You know what I'm saying? But then you never depend on a man, ever. He's given us the scriptures, and that's all we got, folks. And we live in such a controlled world. We have no idea. I mean, the God of this world has made it so that everything's a lie. We live in a land where everything's a lie. And when you start waking up to the lies and you say, hey, look, this is a lie, people will say, you're a conspiracist. It's like, no, I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking at the evidence here and it's pointing in a direction that is a lie. Some people, you can get to look at it and it's like, oh my goodness. And that's where it's like, yeah, and then of course you go on. But so I'm minding my own business. I'm just going through life like everybody else, hot and cold. You know what I'm saying? God touched me miraculously through the writings of Ellen White, of all people, The Desire of Ages. I was 17 years old. I was reading it. And the spirit just came over me. It was like I was totally clean. There was a God. I'm like, oh, right? There's a God. I know there was a guy, but I never personally experienced him. You know what I'm saying? And it was like on fire time. You know what I'm saying? For a while, but that wore off. But because of seeing the God of heaven through the pages of the Great Controversy, through the Desire of Ages, it's like, well, of course, Ellen White's a true prophet. I didn't realize that she borrowed somebody's work that was inspired by the God of heaven, and that those words were still true and they were effective. And you can read something that's gone through some bad hands, but if it talks about the saving grace of a God that loves you, and you say, yeah, I want that grace in my life, it doesn't matter what source you heard it. God of heaven is going to apply it to you. And that's what happened to me. So that solidified even more. Of course, I'm in the right church. I'm in the right this and right that. So anyways, I'm going through life, and obviously we have our hot times and cold times and everything like that. But as the years go past, I'm reading scripture, and it's John 11:9, and Jesus says, other than that, 12 hours in the day. I'm like, 12 hours in the day. I look at it again. I'm like, there's 24 hours in the day, but it says 12. I'm like, 12? Why would it say 12 hours in the day? This is King James. And then he goes on to say that because, anybody that walks in the night, they don't have light of day in them, they fall and stumble. So we walk in the day when we can see, because the light's in us. And so I said, well, let me go back to where God made the day. So I went back to where God made the day, and it says, and God created light, saw that it was good, and gave light the name day. And the darkness he gave the name night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. I'm like, only light is day? I thought light and darkness were day. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I really start looking at all the text.